By Christianwaldrip. h3video1 Raven Shadow. Shade kuro-sayuri. The Fox and the Raven. Once upon a time, thousands of years ago, there was a noble and courageous Nordic warrior who bore the flag of a raven and drank the mead of poetry. He would hunt fish and animals to eat and sell to local and distant villages he would travel to. The warrior would laugh and feast around a campfire aside his hunting friends or back home in the large log cabins of the Nords in a happy, peaceful village full of love even when shrouded in darkness. The warrior died one day of a loud blunderbuss that cracked like the thunder of a hammer. Such a weapon was from another time. The warrior felt cold. He would never see all that he knew and all that he loved again. For a moment he glanced down at the snow, bowed to his knees, taking in the last breaths, comforted by the twinkling snow and the bright moonlight. As the light left the warrior's eyes, he collapsed, not to be found. A beautiful gentle snow fell that night, a snow that by morning became a blizzard, burying him in ice and snow. Many a lifetimes went by, the world a new wonder. The world beginning to drift further from the old ways, and the presence of magic and the amazing creatures accompanying it to one day disappear for a time. One day there was born an artist who traveled to Japan to capture its beautiful mountains. Years went by, and the painter began to try to want to paint a magical world full of love and wonder, and to find and capture something beautiful in a painting where a part of it would live on for centuries. But in his pursuit of painting this place he could never get it right, and he couldn't find the right subject for his painting to capture beauty. This went on for a few years, the painter's heart feeling lost and less confident. One day the painter brought many of his best paintings and set them out on wooden stands so he could see them. Near defeat, he was filled with rage. He began to smash and rip apart his paintings, years of work, until collapsing next to the hollow underside of his small wooden house. He cried and sobbed for what seemed like hours. When he couldn't cry anymore, his head in his arms feeling such sorrow, he looked up to see the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, but there was something beyond beauty. A beauty from another world. She stared at the painter curiously, in her silk robe, her whitish blonde hair glistening in the sun. The man was speechless. The mysterious woman questioned, "Why do you paint?" The artist paused. He wanted to create the world from his dreams and capture beauty. "No matter what I do, the paintings aren't what I see, even though they look right." The woman was silent, staring into the artist's eyes as though she was staring into his soul. She smiled and extended her hand. "Come with me, I think together we can do just that." The painter felt an energy of who this woman was and hesitantly got up and wrapped his arms around her in a loving embrace. The fox felt something she had never felt before. Her left arm gently held on his back, her right cradling his head against her shoulder. As they slowly drifted from each other, their right hand trailed bang over each other. A fiery spark ignited as they separated their hands and slowly dissipated into the air. The woman and the artist were inseparable from that day forth. Laughing as they went, when the artist would paint, the woman would sit and meditate. Over many meals they became very happy together and fell deeper and deeper in love. She started a rice garden in the back which she tended, and they would take turns selling it in the market, able to enjoy better food and even to afford expensive colors of paint. The two couldn't be happier, living seemingly in unison. Near the end of the day, the sun beaming a beautiful golden light through the half-closed paper blinds. The woman who had been meditating had laid majestically out to one side. The artist got out a long canvas and began to paint. He went long into the night, keeping the image of her in the golden light in his mind as she lay sleeping. It was 3 a.m. and he had got it. He was sure he had finished it. It was his masterpiece. He walked over and laid on the floor next to her, admiring her again before closing his eyes and drifting to sleep. In the morning she woke up to eat breakfast and gasped loudly in shock, startling the artist. It's so beautiful." The painter smiled fondly. "Yes, she is." Shade-kitsu kuro-sayuri smiled back. A few weeks later, after a few friends saw the painting, word got all the way to the emperor, who had to see it. When the artist found out, he was uncomfortable and thrilled at the same time. When the emperor came, he was in absolute awe of the painting and promised the painter 8 million annually for life for the painting to be displayed in his art room. The artist looked uncertainly at Shade, but she gave him a smiling look of reassurance. The artist agreed, and the artist made very rich but chose a humble happy life for years, full of wonder and joy. In this time the artist learned that the woman was actually a clever fox, in another form. They lived a beautiful abundant life until one day the artist fell ill from a sickness brought on by the paint. Shade had heard of a wise holy man who she had a feeling could help. They traveled a vast distance and had almost gotten to a place near a monk temple where the man was said to be. But the artist had grown more and more ill, and Shade feared he would not make it, secretly weakening herself, feeding her own life force to the artist in hopes he would make it there, having faith in a man she had never met. It was warm with cold light rain as they approached a building where the monks said the man was meditating. Shade went to the man called Buddha and cried, weeping, what was wrong with him, but also telling the Buddha their story. The Buddha listened, never leaving his meditative state. He said, "I can help," and walked out back, motioning them to come. The artist, struggling to walk, Shade helped him along as they walked closer and closer to an unknown location. Hours went by quiet walking in the presence of Buddha. Shade cried out, "Where are we going? This man needs help." The Buddha stopped and was quiet for a moment and said, "We are here." They turned through the forest in between some rocks to a hidden sanctuary, a spring with beautiful plants and flowers, a single tree growing near the spring. The Buddha helped her help the man under the tree, the man limp hanging from the tree. Buddha reached up and carefully picked a single peach from the tree, and asked the man to eat. Shade, confused, handed the fruit to the artist and he ate. He smiled and was at peace. He smiled as the life left his eyes. Shade, shocked, collapsed to her knees. "No. Stay with me. Wake up." Sobbing, "I don't understand. I thought you could help us." Years went by. Shade would meditate with and learn with Buddha. In this time she came to a keen understanding of this and many other things. She was a clever fox who was becoming very wise as well. For hundreds of years to come Shade would live and would return to the artist once he was old enough. And because of the peach he would always be able to have a faint intuition of what was. And they could be together. They both became wise. The artist always wise beyond their years, until the connection between worlds was severed and the magic and the creatures faded from belief. Spirits retreating to worldly places and things for many more lifetimes, Shade would come to the artist as a spirit fox, who would curl up and sleep on his chest every night. One day, long after her 9th tale, Shade would be in another dimension of her own, place within another realm, a piece of her tied and anchored here by the artist's soul. Their souls forever bound as one. Shade would still be with him and he could visit her in sleep or meditation. She spends most her time flying blissfully in the sunshine over giant lily pads in a large pond near a forest. Within her home is a special way to a place before spirit, but after sky, beyond the universe, a place of all stories, knowledge, and wisdom. A secret library of magic. Known as Prometheus, the artist would live on many lifetimes, eventually becoming Buddha, painting a wonderful world around him. As, and with, Shade on a beautiful adventure until the day when he becomes one with the universe. And he can visit Shade where she meditates near her home on a giant lily pad, her tails in the shape of a beautiful lotus. Filled with love.